officially 7:30. I'm going to call to order the Littleton Conservation Commission meeting of June 24th, 2025. Start off with Tim, if you want to take us through the administrative discussion. And then for those in attendance, we're going to spend 15 minutes on some of these administrative matters. Then we'll jump to the public hearings that start at 7:45, and we'll wrap up administrative discussions after that if we don't get it closed out. So Tim, you want to run us down the list here?
Sure. Before we start, I will note that we had some late continuance requests today from, let's see, 8:15, the request for the amended order of conditions for Foster Street reconstruction, and then also for both of the 64 Beaver Brook lots. So those are continued. We have no minutes ready for approval yet. First item we have is the request for a certificate of compliance. 26 Deer Run Road, and we do have Dana here to speak to that. So Dana, I'm going to promote you over, and I will bring up the most recent revision of the plan.
Chase, just so you're aware, I'm going to recuse myself from this conversation.
Sounds good. We still have a quorum without you, so.
Thank you.
So Dana, you want to fill us in? And yeah, it looks like we've pulled you in as a panelist, and we can share your screen as needed.
How about now? Can you guys hear me okay?
Can hear you, yep.
Here we go.
And now we can see. Well, we could see it.
There we
now
go.
We can see it.
Just looking to hopefully button up my order of conditions, certificate of compliance. There was some questions on some of the differences between the proposed and the existing the last time we met. So I resubmitted some information that hopefully you guys had a chance to look at and is sufficient.
Tim, would you mind to summarize that new information for us, or give us a?
Yeah, give me a second. I'm trying to pull up the plan here, and I'm struggling to find the email where I attached it.
I do have all the stuff right here, Tim, if you want me to.
Yeah, if you're able to share your screen, that'd be great.
Sure. So it was a bit confusing what the architect did or the last time, but I tried to color code it so that you can see what the differences are here, and I made a little table here or key rather, but basically there was a crushed stone bed that was proposed right in front of my slider door somehow. That was an existing concrete pad, and it is still a concrete pad. Not being familiar with these drawings, I didn't realize that's what was being proposed by the engineers. So that is not crushed stone. That is concrete, as it was prior to the rebuild. However, all this blue area is new areas of crushed stone that was not proposed in the initial plan, but was installed as part of the final grading. And then the other things that were different is this was proposed to be a gravel driveway, and it was paved as an oversight when the paving company came, and it was a little chaotic. And then in addition, we have some plantings that were not part of the original proposal, but we put in here just because we like them.
So Tim, the request here is for a certificate of compliance with these changes.
Yeah, so Dana was here at the last meeting, and the idea is just to be, to go over these deviations from the approved plan and see how you guys feel, and if you're comfortable with approving it as is, or if you want to talk about other options.
Okay. Yeah, and you'll have to excuse me, I wasn't at that one. So other members of the commission, what questions do you all still have about what was different and thoughts on this? gonna be a long night if nobody's gonna share an opinion.
This picture addresses what we spoke about, or I heard us speak about last meeting, with having it specifically colored as to what's different. Because last meeting it was lines, but it was difficult to tell what was different. So.
Okay. So that was the request last meeting, was to just more clarity in terms of differences here.
That was what I came away with, yes. And I think for me that provides it. It's unfortunate that the driveway's paved when it's supposed to be gravel or whatever. Big difference in lost the word I'm looking for, but water going in the ground. But other than that, I'm not going to say he has to rip the pavement up.
Dana, what's the crushed stone bed, the blue areas? What was that supposed to be per the plan?
There was nothing proposed.
Okay, so vegetation.
I'm not sure. There was just nothing there. It's on the I don't know whether it's the east facing side of the house. It doesn't get great sun, so that not much would have grown there. The sun kind of goes, across the house this way, and so very little sun gets back there. There's never been anything that's grown over that side of the house.
What's your pleasure, everyone? I mean, I think let me make, I think, our options in front of us pretty clear. One is we issue the certificate of compliance with the deviations and we document those and we go on. The other extreme, and I think there's a lot in between, is we say, no, it's not according to the plans. And at a minimum, it needs to go through a sort of revised permitting process, or it needs to be removed. Those are a range of options.
And Mr. Gilpatrick, when was the paving completed? Do you know how long ago that was now?
I believe it was 2020.
2020. I'm more in line with Ed on this one, where it's unfortunate that it happened, but I'm not inclined to make Mr. Gilpatrick rip it up at this point.
For what it's worth, all of the way that the land is laid out, all of the runoff is away from the resource area. It's just the way that the house is up on a hill and everything kind of tilts back and away. And when we did the construction project, we had no issues with any material going down towards the lake.
So assuming that we're not going to expect a whole new plan starting all over, I'll propose that we accept the certificate issue, I guess is the right word, the certificate of completion, including the adjustments that are on the plan. For something. Sorry. I'm still new at this.
For 26 Deer Run, DEP file number 2040884.
Thank you.
Is that what you meant?
That was yes.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
Oh, just one quick thing. Where is the septic system located here? I'm just curious. Did pavement go over the septic system at any portion?
Part of the leach field.
Do we know if Board of Health is good with that at this point?
We don't. It's that the leach field is entirely outside of the buffer zone, if that makes a difference.
Okay.
Like outside of the 100?
Yeah.
All right.
Is it shown on the plan?
Yeah.
I did mention that to Francis the Board of Health Director. So he is aware of it.
Okay. And I would assume that they'll follow up with Mr. Kilpatrick if they're concerned.
Yep.
So we have a motion that's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? If not, Andrew, I'll have you do a roll call vote.
Sure. All right. Roll call vote. Carl.
Come over, guy.
Michael.
Michael Livingston, aye.
Chase.
Chase Gerwig, nay.
Ed.
Yeah, full side.
Myself, I, and we have one recusal with Kyle, so that is 1, 2, 3, 4 ayes, 1 nay, and 1 recusal.
Very good. Thank you very much for coming in, Mr. Kilpatrick.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
All right, next up we have the enforcement order for 33 Star Hill Road, discussion and ratification. I have Mark here, and I will promote him over.
So the way I'd like to run this, Tim, is first, I'd like to have you describe the enforcement order, what was filed. Then I think we can vote on the ratification of that enforcement order, and then we can engage the property owner with a discussion of, presuming it's ratified, how we go
Sure.
forward.
And I'm gonna share my screen to kind of show the aerial to best go over this.
While you're doing that, Tim, I will note for the 76 Hartwell Ave applicants, I do want to get through this item before we move on to 76 Hartwell. So I would imagine the 76 Hartwell will get pushed out a little bit. I also see Sue Carter. Sue, you have your hand up. Is it something?
Actually, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mark.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. It's actually Mark Sr.
Oh, okay.
So I'm Mark Jr. And so I'm here as well, but Mark Sr. needs to be promoted. He was at the most recent meeting with the wetland biologist.
Give me a second and I'll promote him over.
Thank you.
My office was able to locate the wetland flags and all the tree stumps within the 100-foot buffer. If it's helpful for me to share my screen to show the commission that.
Oh, perfect. That would be awesome.
I think it would be helpful, but Sue, I'd like Tim to lay it out first, but before we vote on ratification, we'll give you a chance to lay that out for us.
All right, so we got both marks moved over at this point. So it was brought to my attention that there was some tree clearing going on that might have been within the buffer zone. And so here we have Prouty and the trail that comes from Prouty down here. The main wetland is on this side of the road. There is a culvert that goes under the road, and so the wetland kind of extends beyond this side under the road, and then kind of runs parallel with the road on this side. And so the property bound isn't really accurately shown here. It shows Wilderness Road actually being on the property for 33 Star Hill Road. But this entire area, I should say entire area, but a large section of this area has been cleared, not entirely clear cut, but a large sum of trees have been removed. So that's the gist of it.
And can you lay out the timeline for us a little bit, Tim?
Yeah, so, oh man, this goes back to, look at my calendar. This occurred, I believe it was, Andrew, do you remember the date that?
I believe we went out there the Friday before last. So,
okay, so the
had there been
13th.
a week.
Yeah.
Okay, so the 13th. And yeah, I met out, the Gallaghers were very willing to meet me out there as soon as possible. I met them out there and we went over it. And it sounds like there was a miscommunication and that they were not aware that there was that they were within the buffer zone. But I will let them speak to that. And Sue, if you'd like to take it from there and share your screen and show, unless you wanted to, unless anybody from the commission wanted to talk.
I think that's fine. Sue, if you've got some information to lay out for us, I'd like to keep this confined right now to the discussion we need to have to determine whether or not we should ratify the enforcement order. So let's say nature and extent, presuming we ratify it, then we'll talk about restoration and so on. Does that make some sense?
Yep, that's fine. I'm just having a hard time finding where I can share my screen. Oh, here we go. I can at least show you. Oh, I'm sorry.
Who are you?
I'm Sue Carter from Places Associates.
Okay. Thank you.
Can everyone see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
we can. You're probably going to have to orient us a little bit to what we're looking at.
Okay, so Star Hill Road, way over to the left-hand side of the screen is where Foster Street is. Star Hill Lane comes up. This is the large house that's currently is 33 Star Hill. So for those of you who have been out on the site, there was a pile of cut logs in this location, and you go downhill. New England Forestry, the road comes probably like this, and that's shown as Wilderness Road, and it actually curls up, and then right after this line, this wetland area here, it branches off. So my survey crew, it got flagged yesterday. My survey crew went out there today. I'm just going to zoom in a bit. Sorry, I'm not used to Adobe. I'm used to Bluebeam. So you can see what I've done here is we've got the wetland flags that were flagged by Dave Crossman. I've shown a 50-foot wetland buffer. As you can see, that doesn't even touch the property line. The property line is the stone wall. 75-foot wetland buffer, 100-foot buffer. And what I did was I had my surveyors locate every tree stump that was 6 inches or greater. What I have for you is, it's kind of hard to see, so I did it at a larger scale. Let me zoom out just a little bit. And I color coded the trees. If you see a 12-inch S means a 12-inch stump. In our rush to get this information for you tonight, my surveyor did not try to identify the tree type by the bark. He just simply located the stumps. So what is up here represents what's shown here on the plan. There's this second wetland area with a buffer, and there is no work within that 100-foot buffer for that one. So once again, what's up above represents a 20 scale or a 10 scale zoom in, and this shows it in relationship to the overall property. And I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so that you can see the whole plan. So what we were able to determine is that there were 3 trees 6 inches or greater within 75 feet of the wetlands, and within between 75 and 100 feet, there were an additional 32 trees. And then I have a chart right here that I can zoom in if the commission would like, that states how many trees and which size diameter that tree stump is.
This is very helpful, Sue. I appreciate you guys doing the work to get this in front of us now. It's going to make for a much more productive discussion, I think.
I'm glad my surveyor could handle the heat today, so he deserves the credit. He was out there in the sweltering heat getting these located.
I pulled field teams today because it was just too hot to do some things. Mr. Gallagher, I see you've got your hand up. Again, I want to make sure we're going to talk right now first about the nature and extent, and then we'll talk about restoration if we need to. Do you have comments on the nature and extent? Oh,
You're
Mr.
muted.
Gallagher, you're muted. While Mark gets that going, Andrew, I know you were out there as well. anything to add from your personal observations, or Tim, anything to add beyond what Sue has laid out for us here?
I'm just curious, with the delineation that was completed, it's essentially saying that the wetland system is on that complete opposite side of the road and there's no spillover with that culvert?
That was going to be my question too, Andrew, is if there was not actually a hydrological connection there to the other side of the trail.
I believe Dave Crossman is on the meeting as well, if you could look to see if he is.
Oh, yep, I'll promote him over.
He flagged it, so, and I did not look in great detail, so he is the one to address that question.
Mr. Crossman, you should be able to unmute yourself now. And
good evening.
good evening.
We did look at that drainage swale on the other side of the cot road between the wall and the road. The road is built up a couple feet higher than the toe of the slope, and it is picking up. It captures the water that comes down the hill. Apparently, some people, I don't know who, but there was a culvert put under there to keep the that area from ponding, I would guess. I didn't really see a wetland plant community. There's a lot of ferns, but other than the ferns, it's pretty much invasive upland plants and upland trees. And the soils within the swale are actually upland soil. So I think the only time it holds water is right after it rains, and then it just goes into the gravel. It's very gravelly out there. So it was my opinion that I really didn't have an area that met the definition of a wetland. It was more of a drainage, just a drainage swale, not really it's definitely not BVW. Was my conclusion.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Gallagher, you had your hand up. Do you want to?
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now, Mr. Chair?
We can, yes.
Okay. So, as David said, he came out and flagged everything, and Sue picked it all up. We purchased this property about 5 weeks ago, and the entire area that we went in to clean had a ton of invasives and a lot of dead trees. I don't believe that there was ever any maintenance done to that side of the property throughout Mr. Kimball's ownership of it. He was fastidious and a professional everywhere, but I think he just left that as a natural preserve area. Although Sue has pointed out there are 3 trees within the 75-foot buffer, and between 75 and 100, quite a few more. The majority of the trees, and we've left them there because Sarah asked us to do so, had all died. So although we can determine the bark on the trees, should we discuss a restoration, the vast majority of the trees that we removed had all, passed their lives. And, we removed them when we removed the invasives. So I just wanted you to know the history of the removal, and the reason that we were doing so was to clean up the property, get rid of the invasives. We were not aware. Tim brought to our attention that there was on the GIS, there's a wetland, 100, 150 feet away on the forestry property, but we were not aware. And as Mr. Crossman said, that the closest to our property on this side of the road is essentially a drainage area that's fed by a stormwater catch basin that's up on right in front of the mansion, up on Star Hill.
And that's shown on the screen right here.
Okay. There is one thing I want to address there while we're talking about ratification of the enforcement order. So one of the interests under the act is wildlife habitat, and it is not uncommon for us to have applicants leave dead trees standing in the interest of wildlife habitat. So I understand, we're certainly dealing with more than just dead trees, but I think it does bear mentioning that dead or alive, there is ecological value and interest under the act, even with dead trees. So with that, I think turn it over to the commission. The question in front of us right now is ratification of the enforcement order. And Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, we need a motion to ratify that.
That's correct.
Is there any debate about ratifying this enforcement order before we move on to next steps?
So are we saying this is or is not in the wetlands?
Well, to ratify it would be to say that there was an impact to the resource area and that we need to take some enforcement action.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, my take here is that there was an impact to the buffer zone. I think we will want to understand the extent of that buffer zone. There may be some disagreement about, at least right now, based on, high level field observations, the extent of it, but it appears to be no doubt that there was at least some impact to buffer zone.
Well, I'd make a motion that we ratify the enforcement order.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded.
Roll call vote. Ed.
At both sides.
Carl.
Carl Melberg, aye.
Michael.
Michael Livingston, aye.
Oh, sorry, my screen just got jumbled here. Kyle.
Maxfield, aye.
Chase.
Chase Gerbe, aye.
And myself, aye. It's unanimous.
Okay. So now, Mr. Gallagher, what we're going to do is move on to the second part of this discussion, which is where do we go from here? Let me put an idea out on the table. I think before we go down the path too aggressively of determining what the right restoration is in terms of tree replanting and so on, I do think we should have a third party take a look at the delineation. And Mr. Crossman, please don't take that as anything other than we need to do our due diligence to confirm that the line is correct. And it sounds like this one might be a little bit more complicated than normal. So my recommendation to the commission would be that we have a third party come out and take a look at that.
I was thinking the same thing, Chase. I think that's the call. So I would support that.
Sounds good.
At your expense.
So what I think what we'd like to do then is understand the delineation and then understand the impacts within that delineation. Sue, it sounds like you've got a tree count within the delineation that you've got. I do think it will be important for us to have a tabulation of species and sizes to the extent that we can know those. Mr. Gallagher, are all of the cut trees still on site, or are we still?
They are.
Some all are. Okay.
They're outside of the buffer there.
Sure.
300 feet away.
Okay. Is it reasonable to reconstruct at least a reasonable approximation of species and sizes?
There's a pile of probably 150 trees. I'm guessing.
Okay. So we've got
the rest of the cleared trees. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
30 that he cleared.
There's a pile of invasives that's probably 20, 30 feet tall. Pretty large pile. And then there's the pile of the trees that were removed. We left all of the specimen trees, as many as we could. We did leave dead trees as well, knowing that there is a value to some of the dead trees as long as they don't create a hazard. Mm-hmm. So you'll see those when you visit the property.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, either Bill Murray from my office or Mr. Crossman should be able to determine what the tree species were based on. There's probably 2 or 3 inches remaining of bark on the stumps to determine what species they were, because most of the trees have a distinct bark pattern.
Oh, okay.
we could
We have enough
try
stump that we can sort that out, we think.
It's tough, but I'm not an arborist, or I garden, but I don't know my tree bark. So I would suggest that we could have an expert, one of our experts, go and try to identify what kind of trees they are.
So is there any way to identify, even though there's value to the dead trees or trees that were removed by others? Can you make that determination? Because there were a lot of trees that were fell that went over the wall and were there, leaning against their stumps. Is there any way for you to make a determination of how long ago they were removed?
My suggestion may be that we get a forester in there, and one of our wetland delineation people we work with, Charles Caron of Caron Environmental, is a forester. He may be able to do it. It's tough because I saw those trees and a lot of them have aged so much that there's no bark remaining on the logs. I would suggest perhaps we have Chuck Caron look at it. He may be able to tell us what the species were from looking at the patterns of the wood itself.
And along those lines, Mark and Sue, I think we're comfortable with the idea that professional judgment is going to need to be involved here. And to the extent that it's unclear, I think as we tabulate these, we just note it's unclear how healthy this tree was, or there are clear signs based on the stumps that it was probably dead, or clear signs based on the stump that it appeared to be healthy, and we'll have to work with the best information we can get.
That's very fair, Chase. Thank you.
So that gets us down the pathway of restoration. I also think we need to talk about the scope of the enforcement order, the geographic scope of the enforcement order. I don't think there's any dispute that the wetlands are sort of towards the northeastern portion of this property. Is there a way for us to very conservatively sort of cordon off that area, Mark, and say, listen, we're going to stay well outside of 100 feet of what anyone would consider to even potentially be a buffer, so that you guys can continue your work without maybe impacting resource areas? Or is there too much overlap here to make that possible?
When will the next meeting be, Chase?
June or July 8th or 9th?
Yeah.
Okay.
July 8th, yeah.
There's no reason for us to do any work on the left-hand side of the road between now and the next meeting. Allow the professionals to wade in and determine the species of the trees. The person that Sue suggested, maybe we can get out there to look at, whether the trees were alive or not alive, and that will help us towards the restoration plan.
Okay.
There's nothing pressing right now for us to have to go back there over the next month. To be honest with you. So,
and if I could comment, in order for my surveyors to determine the lateral extent of the 100-foot buffer, they brought in the field information on the wetlands, brought it in the office, and then went out and actually staked the 100-foot buffer zone. So there is something visible on the ground to delineate the 100-foot buffer as it was located.
I guess what I'm saying too is I'd like to go well beyond that, because we do want to confirm that that delineation is appropriate and there isn't wetland soil or vegetation on the western side of the culvert.
I don't think we want to do anything, Chase.
Okay.
Until the delineation is agreed upon. We know where the 100-foot buffer is agreed upon. Our next step, now that we know that there is a wetland on the adjacent property, could be, it's not on our property, so we know it's on the adjacent property. In 2 separate locations, is Sue and I talked about filing an ANRAD for the entire property so that we can get the total delineation out of the way. And then we can move back in with a level of comfort knowing that we're not going to violate the buffer, any further.
I think that's a great idea.
Thank you.
The last thing on my list of notes here that we want to consider is whether or not the commission wants a site visit. My sense is we can probably see it from the trail on Prouty.
You can come on our property. You can drive right up Star Hill. It's safer. Drive up Star Hill, pull over by the logs. There's plenty of parking adjacent. Please just don't block Star. But I mean, you're welcome to come whenever you'd like, enter the property and visit. So we have no issue with that.
Appreciate that, Mark.
Yeah, no problem.
So we'll do it that way. Members of the commission, to try and get a chance to put eyes on it between now and the next meeting. We'll work on the delineation aspects of this.
Works for us.
Commissioners, what else do we need to do here?
Did you decide who's doing the third party? How are we determining the third party?
No, I don't think we did.
As much as I'd like to say, yeah, we're back here in 2 weeks. Are we confident that the third party is going to get out there within 2 weeks to take a look at this and create a plan and have their delineation?
Well, you know what? How about this? One option that we could use instead of a third party, we've got Amy Green at our disposal that I think could be a reasonable middle ground.
Sure.
As long as Mark is, yeah. As long as Mr. Gallagher is comfortable with that as well. Yeah.
Oh, I love Amy, and I trust her professionalism. She's excellent. Maybe she can make Dave out there. He has his tools to show that it's their uplands. We could coordinate that. I'm sure, Dave, you could make yourself available to meet with Amy.
Yes, I know Amy quite well.
Good.
Tim, does that work for you? Because I think it would be good for you to go out with Amy, but I want to.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Let's leave it at that, and then that saves everybody a couple bucks too.
Well, thank you.
And Amy will be paid, correct?
By the town, but we've got her under contract and
under her current contract, right? Not.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I think I trust Amy's expertise also.
Yeah. Me too.
Okay. So then, anything else?
What, Mr. Gallagher, what was the goal, if I could ask that question, of the removal of all the trees? Was it strictly removing invasives, or what was the?
Our first goal was to remove the invasives. The vining. It was just. I wish I took a video before we did any work, but the amount of it was choking every tree off in there. When you go there, you're going to see that we were in the process of removing some more of the invasives. You're going to see the size of the vines that we're choking these trees off. We wanted to reduce the amount of death that was in there, open it up, and allow the specimen trees, the larger oaks, the maples, and the different in sundry trees there, a chance to grow again. And we wanted to clean up the entire area. We have a client, when we started this, we have a client that's interested in purchasing the property. They're from California, and they have horses. So they could not envision, anything with the amount of undergrowth that was there, the amount of vines, the amount of invasives. It was just a mess. So our goal was to, get the specimen trees room to grow, do maintenance to the entire property. We've tried to do it on the entire property. There's over 10 acres there. It's just, it's a lot to clean up.
Okay, thank you. That gives us an idea when we go out there.
Yep.
Very good. Then we will, I guess it's an enforcement order, so we don't need your permission, Mark, but with your permission, we're going to continue this to the 8th.
Yeah, that'll be fine. Good. And we'll work on getting Sue's person out there to their professionals to look at the trees that were removed, and hopefully be able to give you a better report in a couple of weeks.
Well, and I'll tell you, I mean, if you guys want to start to get ahead of this, I think you know where it's going. Unfortunately, we've done this dance a couple times. If you want to start to think about what the restoration is going to look
Not
like.
a couple of times. We've done the dance one other time.
We as a board have done this a couple of times. You and I have done this once, but
Yeah.
fair enough.
I think we did a good job the first time, and hopefully we'll not continue to do this over and over.
I think we would appreciate that.
Me too.
So,
Good.
okay. Very good. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on now to 76 Hartwell Ave, Mass DEP file number 2041021. Tim, before we turn this over to the applicants, anything you need to fill us in on this?
So this discussion that happened where this hearing was, I'll call it unofficially opened. So it was brought up to my attention after the meeting where this was discussed that the legal ad did not run in the newspaper. So technically it should not have been opened and no discussions should have been had. And so that was reflected in the minutes. So if Bruce would be able to kind of just restate everything that was discussed at that meeting, so it can be on the record, that would be great.
Good evening, Bruce Ringwald from GPR. Representing Mark and his wife, Nathanson at 76 Hartwell Ave. On behalf of the applicant, we apologize for the wasting of your time last time around. The applicant didn't understand the timing that he had to get the bill paid and he was out of town for work. So we apologize.
We can forgive a lot of people for being confused about why we still post ads in newspapers.
There's a procedure here.
Right. Arcane though it may be.
Tell me about it. All right. With your pleasure, if I may share my screen, sir.
Please go ahead, Bruce.
All right, good evening. I'm gonna scope out just a whisker so we can see the whole property. Everybody is familiar with Hartwell Ave and where 76 is. If not, let me know and I'll zoom over to the locus. This is the existing property here. The property itself is just under an acre, goes back and up the hill and is all wooded behind us. This is an existing cape with an existing two-car garage. Has walkway, patio deck, and pool put in some time ago. Retaining wall. This is two different sheds, one here and another one built off of it, but there's two sheds here. Some trails. This is all fenced off in here. And the wetland line was delineated starting off the property here and coming on up and terminating where years ago, that hill that I mentioned behind us here wraps into Hartwell Ave, just north of us, 1.5 lots, I think it is. And if there's any valley or swale at all, it's all piped to this point. And then here it kind of opens up and a couple lots south of here, planned south of here, it's piped across a couple more lots and then it opens up into a bigger body of wetlands. Having said all that, the wetland line right here, 50-foot line comes through the backside of the pool that exists. 100-foot line is through basically the front of the house and the driveway. The side of the garage over here has an extended driveway that already comes out to a retaining wall here and a walkway, a planter off the end of the garage here, and then this walkway that goes all the way on and ties into the back to allow them to connect front and rear. This is all landscaped with stone mulch rather than mulch. Mulch up in here, nice yard and such. The plantings that are in this area and are going to get disturbed, the homeowner is going to want to replant up here outside the buffer in the front yard to maintain all or as many of those as possible. There is one tree here that will need to come down, right? There's this one right here. And we're proposing basically to widen the driveway and put an addition on so that this adds a third bay to the garage and it's going to add living space up and above. We're actually going to take down the garage that exists, and this dash line is pushing the foundation back. No, I'm take that back. This is the line of the foundation right here, and the line of the foundation comes to the front of the building, just a whisker. The dash line is the roof overhang. We have erosion control proposed to be installed around the edge. I have photos, but we were about to set up a site walk. We did set up a site walk at the last time before our timing got all messed. And just as a 10-second aside, so many commissions I work with love site walks before they open anything, so everybody has a feeling and understanding of what the site looks like. Saves time too, but neither here nor there. I'd love to schedule a site meeting with you folks now, because I have seen one thing on site that I want to address with a modification to the plan, but I don't want to do that until you guys have all gotten there and we can all have a conversation. So if we can go for a continuance to our site walk, I'd be happy, and obviously take any questions you might have, but we went through that step once.
And Chase, I totally spaced on this at the beginning of the hearing, but I just realized that the cemetery department, we have a new area that was just donated a couple of years ago that actually abuts this. So I'm going to recuse myself from this hearing. I should have done that at the beginning. Sorry about that.
I don't think you need to recuse yourself from a cemetery commission to doing another public job, Andrew. I appreciate it, but I appreciate your opinion as well.
Yeah, Andrew, I'm actually, if you think it's important for you to recuse yourself, go for it. But I think that's a conservative approach. So do whichever way you like, but certainly we value your opinion a great deal, especially since you know the area a little bit.
I haven't, with the sharing of the screen, I can't see who all's on. Do we have a quorum otherwise?
Yeah, we do have a quorum, Bruce.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm going to guess, I might be a little more recalcitrant, Andrew, with your recusal if I thought this was going to go on for a long time, but I don't think this will go on for a lot of meetings. So.
Yeah, I can't see anything here, and I've done a few things. We'll have a sidewalk and we'll close, I hope.
I think that sounds perfectly reasonable. But before we get to scheduling the sidewalk, Bruce, one of the things that I want to make sure we haven't tripped over here is the addition of impervious area and our wetlands protection, our local bylaw. So everybody knows our local bylaw for the 50-foot no disturb, but there is a additional impervious area piece.
Yes.
Have you looked at that? And if you have and you wrote it down and I didn't read it, then that's 100% on me.
In our project narrative, our garage living space we had 420 square feet of impervious area. So we're within your percentages and realm.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't
No
read
problem.
that part. Okay, looks like we're looking to schedule a site walk here. With the 4th of July in between, what's everybody's pleasure? Could we do it early next week so that Bruce and his client have a chance to sort of process things and be ready for the following meeting? Or should we do it after the 4th?
I can tell you, I will be out of town the first 2 weeks of July.
First 2 weeks of July.
Yes,
When's our next meeting?
July 8th, I believe we said.
Yep, that's correct.
So I'm going to be missing the next meeting, just so you're aware.
Hey, Chase, I'm going to be out next week.
Okay. What does this week look like for folks? Do you tuck something in Wednesday, Thursday this week, tomorrow, or the day after?
I could do tomorrow or Friday. Thursday's impossible for me.
Okay.
I could probably do Friday, but I won't be here for the next meeting, so I'm not sure that I'm terribly high on the priority list.
I'm sorry, I didn't see who's not here at the next meeting.
Ed Foltz.
Oh, hey, Ed, sorry, didn't see it.
That's okay.
Can I stop sharing my screen so we can see everybody?
Yeah, go ahead, Bruce. That's fine.
Thanks, that's much better.
What do we think of just trying to rip the Band-Aid off and do it tomorrow afternoon? Would that be Michael, you said you could do that.
Yep.
I can't do tomorrow afternoon, but if you guys are comfortable doing it without me, by all means.
What time are you thinking of?
Michael, any thoughts?
I can pick a time anytime.
I am home rehabbing from total knee replacement. So this is going to be my first outing. I'm excited. I'm going whenever.
Aside from a 1:30 to 2:30 meeting, I'm available tomorrow afternoon. So, Carl, is there a time that could work for you?
Probably after 2:30 would be better.
Do you want to set it for 3:30?
Yeah, let's do that.
3:30.
Okay. So it looks like we'll have 3 commissioners that can make it and maybe more, and we'll plan on seeing you out there at 3:30 tomorrow, Bruce.
Tell Andrew to come too. He's good for this.
We got to get him out of the office.
Especially where it's so old.
Sounds great. We'll see you there. There's a fair amount of parking in the driveway. I mean, we all know Hartwell's gotten faster with the paving, so
Sure.
there's a fair amount of parking on site. All right,
And
thanks, guys.
Tim, one other question for you, Bruce, before I let you go. Tim, I do think it would be important for you to go put eyes on this if you haven't. Bruce, is it generally okay with your client to have Tim just stop by and put eyes on it?
Definitely, because when Tim was there before, I was thinking it was winter, and he was looking at the other side. When we were going to do the stuff on the other side, it's a whole nother ball of wax over here on this side. And Tim, give me a yell if I can. I make it. I'm a little bit further away now, but I'm a half hour away, so I can be there anytime. Just give me.
Okay, sounds good.
Appreciate it, Bruce.
All right, guys, have a good night.
Good night, Bruce.
Bye now.
Hey, Tim, can you send a quick reminder out on that one?
Definitely.
Thanks.
Okay. And then, Tim, you said we had some people withdraw for it tonight, but not 65 Bruce, right?
No, we do have 65 Bruce here. I will move over John Boardman and Randy Miller.
Very good.
Good evening, gentlemen. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, John. How you doing?
Yeah, this is John Boardman. I'm here with Randy Miller to talk about 65 Bruce Street. Just a brief recap. We started a couple meetings ago requesting a addition within the 50-foot buffer and a septic system that was outside the 50-foot buffer. Since then, we've been trying to work with the commission, and we have moved the addition outside the 50-foot buffer zone. We have moved the erosion control barriers to the 50-foot buffer zone. We've added some dry wells. We provided a planting plan. We feel like we have done our best at this point to try and meet all the commission's concerns. And we would like to move forward tonight and hopefully get to a point where we can get an approval from the commission. That being said, we're still open to discussion with the commission, and we are certainly interested in any input that the commission might have, or any conditions that the commission might have that would make this plan amenable to them, so that at the end of the day, we can move forward with the project. I think Randy's grabbed the screen and is showing our planting plan, but I will let him discuss that.
Good evening, Commission. Where we left off from the previous meeting. So apologies on that one. I was at an active training base, and in hindsight, probably shouldn't have had the other meeting between helicopters and a bunch of other things. I was pretty much lost in that. So going forward, what I have here is basically just kind of recapturing the last few meetings with what I originally did for tree plans, and then this current one. So at the second meeting, created this plan, and this one showed the trees that were being removing with the red Sun Valley maples and black spruce. At the conclusion of this meeting, the commission determined, or it seemed like, we needed to adjust erosion control, and I needed to add more trees and do something with the shrubs to indicate how many shrubs were going to be planted. So to move on for the next meeting, I created this plan, and this plan was basically I tried to up the tree count as best I could to try to meet the 2-to-1 ratio. In doing so, I picked the Green Giants. They weren't necessarily my favorite tree to pick, but able to put a lot in a small amount. However, during the course of that meeting, it seemed like the commission didn't really agree upon the Green Giants, which I can agree upon as well. But in light of that as well, the issues that were brought up were 11, 12, 13, and 14 for the trees that were being removed. We did talk about the arborists that came in for 13, 14, and then with 11 and 12, I just want to point out that during the course of creating the plan for the septic system itself, there were test holes that were dug. So if you do look at the screen there, you'll see that 11, 12, they did have test holes that were dug next to them. And as a result, there was some roots that were dug up with those trees. So my concern for those trees still exists with potentially them falling onto the septic system itself. And then with this current plan, this was a little bit more of a hybrid between the first two. What you see for the other circles is basically that represents, it's a pretty good scale model of what a mature tree of those species will be. So I spaced them out as best I could with that scale. So in here, basically the tree count now, there's 18 trees I added from the previous number 2 slide. I added 3 more maples, 3 more spruce, 2 more dogwoods, and then also there's 12 shrubs. So basically at this point, looking at the commission to see what I have here, and if there's something that you disagree with, to have a conversation, see how we can figure something out. I do want to mention as well that I put these white circles down here because those are trees that are still existing. So the one I'm currently pointing at now is a very large maple. This one right here is a very large pine. And then also I have a cedar tree here as well. So the whole area isn't getting clear cut. There's still going to be some trees remaining. And then as well, this entire property is heavily wooded, even around the house itself.
Thank you very much, Randy. I will point out for the commission as well, we also have, I think related to, doing this off memory, trees 13 and 14, I think a revised waiver request, because that would be work within the 50.
Yes, I believe that was submitted with the new notice of intent.
Yeah, correct. That was submitted last week. That outlined those two being removed via crane, stumps being left in place so that there wouldn't be an erosion issue. You know, if the commission felt you needed erosion control around it during that operation temporarily, you know, that's something we would certainly allow or accept as a condition. I didn't want to move the erosion control down and around those trees because then the contractor is going to feel that's their place to continue to excavate and move. So I'd prefer it on the other side of the main erosion control. But if the commission feels strongly that you need something temporarily there while the activity is taking place, again, certainly would approve of that as a condition or agree with that as a condition of approval.
And to be clear, John, when we talk about removing trees, when we talk about removing those trees, we're talking about removing the trees, but not the stumps, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And that's in writing in both the cover letter and the waiver request that the stumps will remain. So.
Very good. Okay, commission, what's your pleasure here with the revised planting plan?
I appreciate Randy and John, bolstering this with, the additional trees. And I think with the waiver requests for safety, I'm comfortable with the 13 to 14 pine trees being removed at this point.
I think I'm with you too, Andrew. I will continue to voice, I'm still a little grumpy about the idea of removing trees in reserve areas. And I don't intend to make it a practice in this particular site. I can see the logic of it. But I do think it's something we need to be mindful of in the future.
I'm on board with those motions.
Okay. Anyone else, or should we entertain a motion here? I'm liable to take silence for consent. Before we get to a motion, Tim, I think a couple findings that we need to make sure are memorialized, even though they're in the written components here. One, the removal of the trees within the 50 via a crane. Memorializing the findings that those trees that are in the naturalized areas of the site won't have their stumps removed. I think we want to make sure to memorialize that and make it clear, even though it's written down. These things can get lost. Any other findings y'all want to see? I will tell you, John, you entertained, the idea of moving the erosion controls down. I'm not sure it's necessary. What we're going to end up with around the tree is a bunch of mulch. Like that doesn't seem to justify moving erosion controls around.
I don't want to move the line. I would be more,
or new erosion controls around
temporary.
It or whatever. Yeah,
I don't want to give the contractor additional room to play.
That's why we moved it back to the house anyway. And I agree. I think we approved some tree removal at our last meeting, right? With the understanding it was going to be top down via crane, and we didn't require erosion controls. So I feel a little awkward asking Mr. Miller to do that now.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm much more comfortable with that remediation plan now. I'll make a motion then to close public hearing and issue a notice of intent for 65 Bruce Street, DP number 204-1016.
With a waiver?
With a waiver.
Second.
I'll second.
All right.
Motion's been made and seconded. Andrew?
Roll call vote. Carl.
Carl Malberg, aye.
Ed.
Bullseye.
Chase.
Chase Kervig, aye.
Michael.
Michael Livingston, aye.
Kyle.
Maxfield, aye.
And myself, aye. It's unanimous.
Very good. Good luck, guys. You will see standard conditions as well. Notify Conservation Commission before you work. Things that I think, John, you'll find very normal. And
yeah, I'll chat with Randy and let him know we need to record the order and post the sign and let Tim know before we get started. So all the usual, I assume.
Yep, all the usual stuff.
I appreciate it. Thank you much for your time.
Take care.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay. I think now, Tim, we're going to circle back to administrative items.
Yeah, we have a little bit of time between now and the 8:45 agenda item. So where we left off was the Cloverdale abutter complaint and mowing authorization. So the town received a formal complaint from an abutter about preferential treatment towards another abutter, Jim O'Neill, who most of you guys know, if not all you guys know. And I believe this was recently spurred from me authorizing Jim to, so Jim mows a fair amount of Cloverdale towards the entrance. And then we also have somebody who mows the open field meadow area towards the right once a year. Jim approached me and we discussed him mowing an additional area. So for those that are familiar with Cloverdale, there's sort of a finger that goes in between the back of Jim O'Neill's property and then the property that comes off of, oh man, is it Old Farm Road? Somebody can correct me. But there's a little finger that goes back there that is Cloverdale property. And the idea was to mow it to suppress the invasives that are back there. And so I authorized Jim to do so. And that seems to have spurred this complaint. At least that's my speculation. And it was, I don't know if you guys got a chance to look at it. It's a 30-page complaint with a bunch of photos. a couple minor encroachments, and then also worth noting that the town also received a separate complaint, or not necessarily a complaint, but letter from that abutter stating that they're going to be revoking access to their property from the town. We met with town council to discuss the fact that highway department has a drainage easement on that property, and so they will still need to maintain some sort of access for that. So I spoke with Jim Duggan, and he thought it would be best to get a formal response from the commission on the mowing authorization as well as the complaint in general.
Can I ask you a couple questions, Tim, before we get to that?
Sure.
One of the comments within that was that there were trees that I think DPW was going to take down that were, I may be mixing these up, on town property, but were alleged to pose a threat. Can you fill me in a little bit on that component of it?
Yep. So Amy, myself, Steve Witten, and I think Steve Yonley went out, gosh, has to be a year and a half ago at this point.
Yeah.
To review some of the trees that abutter brought to our attention about being a hazard to their property. And Highway went in and they actually removed a bunch of them.
Okay.
Apparently not enough to the abutter's liking.
Okay. So trees were removed. That's what I was trying to piece together, because I thought trees had been removed, but reading it read like none were. So, okay. Understood.
Tim, about that same time, I thought, again, maybe she just never put it in writing. I thought we had also talked at that time about Jim maintaining that swath of property back there that had the invasives, and not mowing it every week, but keeping it cut down so that
we definitely might have. But it seemed like, it's entirely possible that we did. I don't know if he was not consistently doing it, but if you ever took that on.
So, Tim, is the town administrator asking us to more formally document the scope of work that we've assigned a volunteer to do, or to directly respond to the abutter's complaints? Because I think those could be two very different things.
I think both.
Both. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I believe I sent around so when I authorized Jim to mow that area, out of an abundance of caution, I documented that and threw it in our file. And I think I passed that around to you guys last week.
Yeah, and upon reading that, what I think we want to do is just build out the basis for that a little more completely. I think it's really clear to you what the basis was, but I can understand how a member of the public might read that and go, I don't actually know what this means.
Yeah, it is a little vague.
It's fine. I'm not faulting you. If we write everything to an extreme level of detail, we just end up with tons of memos in the file. So not a big deal, but let's build that out a little bit more with the basis. What is a typical, mowing frequency? What invasives do we have? Why is this the best way to control them in lieu of herbicides and things like that?
Yeah, I can tell you now that I know for a fact there is burning bush and bittersweet back there.
Okay.
What exactly is the complaint about doing that mowing? Why are they unhappy with that?
I'd have to pull up the complaint and look again. I believe it might have been that it was I think they claimed it might have been an effort to extend Jim's property or the appearance of
that's property. What it is. They felt Jim was extending his property.
Yeah, I'm reading the letter, and if these things are true, there's a lot of stuff here. Installing structures, animal enclosures, and so on and so forth. It's quite a history of kind of pushing the boundary a little bit.
I'm looking at the map and trying to just get oriented as to, where everything is. And I think we did a walk there some time ago and, talked about the trees that needed to come down and what have you. I just have a hard time seeing what the real disagreement or the real complaint is. Because I read through that too, and yeah, there's a lot of stuff there, and I just want to understand where they're coming from.
I would think at this point in time, it's probably not a fruitful endeavor for us to try and read between the lines. I think our response should be a call and response, right? Like, okay, here are the things you're concerned about. Here's why we as the commission are comfortable with those, or maybe there are things that we're not comfortable with and we agree do need to be adjusted and what that adjustment would be. So I guess my ask would be that we authorize Tim to draft a response that we could take a look at together. Tim, I don't think you need to belabor it, right? But just here's how I understand your concerns. Here's where the commission is. And then if you could provide us with a draft of that to consider in response, I think that would be helpful.
Sure, and we can go over that at the July 8th meeting.
Does that sound okay to everybody else? Because I think there's a lot of pieces there that I don't know the individual facts of, like whether or not a stake was removed or whatever,
I think that sounds good. There's a lot of different points to kind of look into, and I think for us to put together something tonight would be a little premature to.
One question though, with them removing access through their land, I assume that how do people get to the conservation land now?
So, to my knowledge, I don't know of anybody who's accessed the Cloverdale and the trails through their property. They specifically noted in the letter to the town restricting access for treatment of Phragmites. So I'm going to confirm with Chris Politan, who's doing the herbicide treatment of the Phragmites, that he must access it from the main parking lot. I don't know if historically he was accessing from their property. I can always check with Amy on that as well. And honestly, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to talk with Amy more about this, because she definitely has more of a history on this than I do.
Yeah, the Phragmites are tucked back further in that corner, right? So
yeah,
they could have parked on Old Farm Road and tried to go through the yards there, but
yeah,
if that was the case, I don't think it's much more a lift for them to go into the main parking lot now and take the main trail.
Right, because there's so many pockets of the Phragmites that they're treating. They're all over that open meadow or wet meadow.
And it's certainly a property owner's prerogative to withdraw our ability to access things through their property. It's maybe a different issue with respect to a deeded easement, but that's on the town side of the house.
So we're saying to get to it, there's 3 town land parcels over on Great Road.
Say that again?
To get to the land, forgetting the Phragmites and stuff, if someone just wanted to go in and walk around.
At Cloverdale, yeah, they can access from Great Road. That's where the main parking area is.
That's what I was trying to understand.
Tim, would you like a member of the commission to sort of work on this with you? Like possibly, sort of one person to work on it, to bounce ideas off of, kind of thing?
Yeah, that might be helpful. It is getting really busy at Town Hall at the end of the fiscal year right now. So this week's kind of like crunch time. So that might be helpful.
I would recommend, because it's going to take us a little bit of time, I would like us to respond in short order to just say, we got your letter, we're preparing a response. Non-communication is not going to be as helpful as we heard you. It's just going to take us some time. Is everybody okay with a letter going out that says we received it and we're working on a response?
I think that'd be the respectful thing. Absolutely. Just to say, hey, we've received your letter. It touches on, X, Y, and Z. We're just looking into this for you. We'll respond in due time. And
I wouldn't even do the touching on, just we got your letter and thank you for your correspondence. We're working on understanding the issues or some non-committal thing like that.
I think that's right. So does anybody have some bandwidth to help Tim with this letter?
I can help.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
Sure.
And the target, Tim, I know things are busy, but let's still target to at least have a draft in 2 weeks. And if you don't have a draft in 2 weeks, let's at least be prepared to understand how we get to the finish line in a reasonable time period.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, Chase, I do see a hand up in the audience from Dan Sievers. I don't know if it's regarding this or another.
Oh, thank you very much. Could we promote Dan to a panelist here so he can ask his question?
Good evening. Sorry, I'm actually for the next thing on the agenda.
Oh, okay. Sounds good. Why don't you just stay here as a panelist, then we'll give you a chance when we get there. Okay, Tim, you want to take us to beaver permit ratification?
Did you guys want to, it is 8:45 if you wanted to move ahead with the next scheduled public hearing.
It is 8:45. Wow. Okay. Yeah, let's do that. Let's take up 97 and 99 Mill Road. Dave, is this your project here?
Hey everyone. Yeah, sorry, some connection issues getting promoted to the panelist position right here. Yeah, so yes, this is my project. I'm Dave Ketchen, Assistant General Manager for the Littleton Electric Light and Water Departments. I've got Dan Sievers with me from the Moore and Cameron Group and Steve Byrne again from the Citizens Energy Group there. And Dan is going to kick this off from our last meeting and last site visit.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Dave. So, for the record, my name is Dan Sievers with the Moore and Cameron Group. I am going to give a couple updates since the last time we met. First update is there is no update from DEP. Unfortunately, we don't have a number yet or technical comments, so we're going to have to wait on that. Since we last met, we have gone in front of the planning board, and they have approved the project. As well as we had resubmitted to both DEP and Littleton Conservation the notice of intent, WPA Form 3 with updated fee, stormwater checklist, including O&M plan, as well as a construction pollution prevention plan, and a revised site redevelopment plan. I can run through some of the updates on the plan, one being the applicant's name, which is Littleton BESS instead of Citizens Energy. And our last time we met, we talked about some things we wanted to see on the plans and in documentation. Some of them being, I'll run through them, the proposed material stockpile area, proposed concrete washout area. We have some additional erosion control along the property to the north, and as well as we have been in communications with the fire department, and they have told us that it would be advantageous to propose a fire hydrant on the site, so that in the event of worst case scenario of a fire breaking out, which is not to be expected, but if that were to happen, there would be a fire hydrant on site that would allow for the street to not have to be closed down in the event. which we have proposed right here. We have kind of a note that it's the final location is to be coordinated with the fire department and water department. Yeah, so I think that's all the updates as far as the plans and submittals go. And I think the main other concerns that the commission has brought up is the chemical makeup and the actual system itself. Steve, are you on? Are you available to talk further about this?
Yep, I'm here, Dan.
Awesome.
So
go for it.
I think that when we were on the site walk with Chase and Ed, that Ed had asked about the liquid coolant system, and I think that we sent over some of the documentation either earlier today or earlier this week. The liquid coolant is actually, I sent the data sheet. It's ethylene glycol 50/50, so it's got a relatively large content of water, so it's environmentally, considered to be environmentally safe. There's a total of 190 liters of coolant within each module cooling plate per battery container, and the site has 4 containers, each individually. They're not interconnected with that coolant. It's a closed loop system, so there is no storage tank. There is no refilling the system. Once it gets, filled during the manufacturing process, there is no refilling needed. So there's never any opening of the tank and anything like that. And there are alarms as part of the overall battery energy storage management system that would provide alerts if there's a loss of fluid or a leak. And the containers are weatherproof, so if there were to be a leak, an alarm and a leak, it would be within the container and it would not be spreading outside of the container. Lastly, there are other coolants within the system for the HVAC, but that's R32, which my understanding and what the manufacturer sent to us is that it's the most common refrigerant used in the HVAC industry. And there is nothing there that's planned to be banned or anything else like some other refrigerants that are under question now. So that's what I got from researching what was in the liquid coolant for what Ed had asked.
Steve, you said there's going to be, I don't think these were your words exactly. I can't remember exactly what you said, like spill control or some sort of containment. What did you mean by containment? Or maybe I misunderstood. Is there in other words, I think you said containment. Is it containment within the equipment, or do you mean containment like a berm around the structure or something like that to contain fluids?
Oh no, tonight I was just referring to the containers themselves. So this liquid coolant, the modules and the cooling plates are within the 20-foot containers. And if there were to be any leak, then since they're weatherproof, it's not expected that would leak outside of the container. That's all I meant there.
Okay.
I think we had talked previously about, maybe some sort of containment or berms, but I don't think that's what you're referring to here. What I was mentioning was just the containers themselves. So the 4 containers on the left of the site, those are weatherproof. The cooling plates are within the racks and the modules for the batteries. And yeah, if there were to be a leak, and Samsung, who's the manufacturer, indicated they weren't aware that they've ever had a leak. But this is in place in case there is ever a leak. So on top of everything, all the safety measures that they have for the batteries, they also include that for the liquid cooling plate if that were to happen with a leak within the system.
Gotcha. So containment within the system.
Correct.
Given that we don't have a Mass DEP file number, I think, and we don't have comments back from Mass DEP, I think we can go down the path here of addressing any questions or comments to the extent that it's helpful to you all, but I'm not sure we also need to draw this out either, since there's no way we could close even if we wanted to. Commissioners, what other comments do you have here?
I'm actually wondering about the light poles. Are those intended to stay on all the time, or only when humans are accessing it? My concern is just light pollution in a spot that's, you know, right by the brook there.
Yeah, we haven't come up with anything. We weren't expecting these to be large lights or anything like that. The ones that we have at other projects are motion detected. But you know, however Littleton Electric or you guys prefer us to have this, they could be motion detected. We could have them off the side of the container instead. We don't want to have them aiming towards, you know, any of there's no residences or anything like that, but it would be, you know, kind of focused on the site itself, not to be over accentuating the site itself.
They wouldn't be on all the time, right?
No, they don't have to be.
Yeah, it would be bad if they were, because any nocturnal animal would be severely impacted.
Yep.
Yeah, we would certainly prefer to see something that's just motion activated, as
Yep.
long as
That's fine.
Consistent with your design.
Is that something that could be a condition for approval once we get to that point?
I don't have any problem just conditioning it. Do you guys, or do you want to see it spec'd in the design?
As long as it gets done, I don't have a problem with being in the condition.
Yeah, no, you know, it just seems to make sense. So whatever way we can get it in, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Other comments? I have a couple that I wanted to run through with you guys, if nobody else has any. I don't think, and maybe you've sent it over and it just hasn't made its way to us, or it hasn't been posted on our project website, but I would like to, and Tim, if you have them, maybe you can just forward them to the safety data sheets for these. I mean, ethylene glycol is a good answer from an environmental impact perspective. But I would want to see those. I also don't think we've heard yet. One of the things that we've wanted to understand is what would firefighting look like here? Like, what would need to be done if there was a fire? And so I think my understanding is you guys were interacting with the fire department a bit. Obviously, there's a hydrant coming in here. I think if we could understand what the fire suppression measures would be so that we can account for those from a resource area impact, that would be very helpful to us. I don't think that needs to be a big, long, drawn out thing. In fact, if you want to summarize it in a quick memo, or even just have a member of the fire department here, I think, you know, we're representing a town department in multiple contexts. That might be the most efficient way. But that's one of my biggest concerns here is we've got a big electrical fire with a battery station. What does that mean if there's a fire?
Yeah, we need to. We'll have an emergency response plan with the fire department. The industry standard, you know, these days is not to flood. If one of these containers were to have a thermal event, is not to flood that container. Any use of water would be to you know, to keep the other containers cool. So the water would be limited. But again, we haven't had these discussions with the fire department themselves based on the area or anything else, but that is part of what we expect to go through a pretty extensive fire narrative and emergency response plan with the fire department and with Littleton Electric because it's their site.
Okay.
We've talked a couple of times about this topic and how to contain any potentially contaminated water that's used to put out a fire or foam or whatever it is that gets used. I don't know if there's been any real answer for that though.
Yeah, it's something we've been actively working on, trying to get a clear answer from the fire department. And we haven't gotten an exact response back yet, but we will work towards that for next meeting.
Thank you.
Otherwise, as far as reporting out what I saw at the site walk, the whole area is severely degraded. And so to the extent that this project goes in, it's going to be an improvement on what's there in many regards. So I'm generally comfortable with this once we resolve some of these details. We'll see what Mass DEP has to say. Any other comments for Dave and team that they need to think about so that next time they're in front of us, they don't get blindsided by anything? Okay. Dave, I'm going to suggest that it may not make sense for you guys to come back until you have Mass DEP comments.
Yep.
But happy to see you if you want to spend your Tuesday evening with us, but I would suggest you can just work it out with Tim if you don't have comments by our next.
Okay. Appreciate that.
Okay. So we'll continue this to the 8th. Is that okay, Dave?
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
I don't want to belabor this. I know you guys are moving on to the next one, but we have a very similar setup in Wellesley, Massachusetts. So if anyone ever wanted to see what this actually looked like, we're open to that. I offered it to Dave and others, but I just want to offer it to you guys. If you ever wanted to see it, we can actually open up a container so you could see, the liquid coolant, the coolant system, and what it actually is rather than what we've shown you on paper. So just an offer, and nothing you have to do. I just wanted to make sure you guys are aware Wellesley's not too far. So I just wanted to offer it out there.
Appreciate it, Steve. Dave,
sorry, Chase. I was just going to say, you mentioned, or I want to say you mentioned that when we did the site walk, but didn't you say it was a much larger system than what's going in here?
So the system that we're doing and that we're proposing in Littleton is, like the next generation. So it's the Wellesley system is 6 containers versus 4 containers, but it's almost the exact same size.
Okay.
And there are different inverters that we're proposing in Littleton, but the container setup itself is the exact same thing. So you could see the suppression, the coolant, everything else that was there. Just if you wanted to ever see it instead of, just pictures that we've sent, that's all. Sometimes it helps. Sometimes people are more visual. That's all.
Dave, maybe if Light and Water decides to take a field trip down there, why don't you let us know through Tim that you guys are going to go down there, and Tim will circulate it. And if somebody can link up with you guys, that'd be great. But if it doesn't work out,
okay. Yeah, we can plan on that, and I can extend that to our board as well. Try and make a trip of it.
Cool. Sounds good. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Okay, so back to our administrative agenda.
Yep. So we're on to the emergency beaver permit. So Board of Health received an application for the breaching and removal of a dam over on Mill Pond. This particular area also received a emergency permit. I believe it was last year. The same exact location. I believe the permit that got issued was for breaching the dam and possibly, if they needed to, installing a beaver deceiver, which doesn't appear to have been done by the photographs that were submitted this year. I spoke with DEP about how to best go about this, since these applications and permits are emergency permits, right? And they should be issued in a timely manner. And sometimes it's not the best idea to have them wait until the following commission meeting. And so what they recommended is to talk with the chairs and see what they think, if they're comfortable with it. Sign off from conservation side. Board of Health can issue the permit, and then at the following commission meeting, vote on ratification of the permit And if there was anything outside of the norm that would take place for breaching and removing the dam that triggered the need for them to come back in with a notice of intent, that would be decided at the following meeting as well, which would be this meeting.
So Sarah and Tim contacted us, a week and a half ago, and we signed off on it. So now, Tim, you're just looking for a ratification of that from the full commission.
Right.
All they're doing is, have they done it or are they doing it?
They were issued a 10-day permit, and that timeline extends until the first week of July. So it's possible that they haven't done it yet, but it sounded like they were ready to move on it as soon as it was issued. So there's a good chance it's already been done.
So they're just breaching the dam, they're not doing anything else.
No, they are removing the dam manually.
Right, but they're not like taking the beavers out or any of that stuff.
They're trapping the beavers, but that is outside of our purview when it comes to beavers. That's a Board of Health issue.
Any other issues with ratifying the permit? Can we get a motion to ratify it, please?
I move that we ratify the emergency beaver permit for Mill Pond.
Second.
All right. Roll call vote. Michael.
Michael Livingston, aye.
Chase.
Chase Gerbeck, aye.
Ed.
Reluctantly, both aye.
Carl.
Carl Melberg, aye.
Kyle.
Ron Maxfield, aye.
And myself, aye. It's unanimous.
All right, moving on to discussion of conservation parcel U172080. We had previous discussions at the last meeting with Saul Marini from Parks and Rec about the idea of installing racks that would store canoes and kayaks, where the public would pay a fee to store their watercraft there for the year, and then the proceeds from that would go towards lake management issues. I think we left off with the commissioners were going to take another look at the property, and we're going to follow up with discussions on what we thought about the idea.
Yeah, so I did drive by the spot, and it's a lawn right now. So I think one of the arguments last week, or the points, was, if we give this permit, it will never be what it used to be. But it's a lawn right now. So, I mean, I don't see a problem with doing it. I think it actually might, be better in the long run, so that people aren't driving their watercraft in and out and having to manage that. If they're on racks and they can just walk them into the pond, so much the better.
So I'm very familiar with the site. I've been going by for hundreds of years, and it's just one of those mowed fields that has been maintained for feels like 1,000 years. I just feel like in terms of public safety, people crossing there, moving boats in and out, that's going to be an issue. Parking could be an issue. I know that parking is already at a premium right now around the Frog Ponds. And like Ed had mentioned last time, once that field's gone and that's in use, I'm just afraid that it's going to be gone forever, and we're going to lose that resource. And I know kids use that field for wiffle ball and all kinds of other activities during the year. And I like the idea of getting revenue for the lakes, but I just don't like this particular site. I think that in terms of public safety and community use right now, it's just going to be a little disruptive. But Yeah, that's essentially where I stand. And I wouldn't be in favor of putting it on that particular parcel.
I think I've made my position pretty clear, being dead set against doing this. We're not here to provide Park and Rec additional revenue, and I just think it's going to be bad long-term. Okay, so it looks like a lawn, but a lawn looks a lot prettier than ugly racks and boats and that may or may not be well cared, maintained, and opportunity for junk to be there, trash potentially, if nothing else. Different accoutrement that go with the boats will be dumped all around. And why would we introduce this to our program? I'm dead set against it.
Carl, Kyle, do you guys have thoughts one way or the other?
Yeah, I'm not particularly in favor of it either, for all the thoughts that have just been shared. These racks can get unwieldy. From what I've seen of these types of racks in use. And yeah, I don't think it should be changed from what it currently is. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not for this or against this as certainly not as strongly as others are. It's the way it's being talked about. It sounds like we're expecting to see 70 kayaks stored there, and I feel like we have control of that. First of all, we've never seen any sort of proposal on what we want to do this, but there's no clear path on what they want to do, how they want to do it. But yeah, I can fully support not using town-owned land to help somebody else. Thanks, Barbara. As far as I can see the public safety side of it. To play devil's advocate, it would also alleviate traffic and other public safety at the beach or at the boat launch. The local residents would have a spot. I assume that's maybe who would use these, more of the folks in the neighborhood already. But yeah, I know there's been a lot of talk about changing that intersection, that corner for years, and just traffic management down there. But yeah. Mike, you made a good point. Mike, you made a good point about it's a lawn, right? I get that we have to protect our lands, but every other time we talk to the homeowners, we're trying to get rid of lawns. Like it seemed a little counterintuitive to the conversations that we've been having on. Now we're protecting a lawn. That's not in the resource area either, correct? Or is it in the buffer of Frog Pond or whatever that is?
I'm not sure, honestly. I'd have to. It might be
probably close.
Yeah,
pretty close. Yeah.
I do want to know. I did see we have Rob Rounds here. And
yeah, I promoted Rob. I figured he would have something to weigh in on too. Just to close this out, I'm very much comfortable with, really for the reasons that Michael laid out. Like it makes sense to me to do a trial run. We work very hard. We have a lot of volunteers who put in a lot of time and effort to maximize accessibility to our resources. Right. We have dual missions here, and one of them is, in so many words, holding lands in the public trust and doing our work for the benefit of the public. I see how this could fit into that. That said, if we did it, I would only ever want to do it on a 1-year trial basis. But Rob, you had raised your hand. Did you have a particular comment to make here? You should be able to unmute yourself.
So there. Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, a few things. I agree with I'm very dead set against it. Folks that I speak with in the neighborhood, I don't think really know that this is even before Conscom that Park and Rec is proposing it. I've lived here nearby. I live on Juniper Road, which is one part of the lot. for 4 years. I've not seen vehicles on the property, as Sal mentioned during your last meeting. So that's not been my experience in the last 4 years. Maybe they've been there because I'm not there all the time, but I live pretty close by. The property is used extensively by the neighborhood, walking their dogs through that area. I do have significant concerns with regard to placing watercraft there that would be going across lake and lakeshore to get where I think Park and Rec is proposing to put a fishing dock. The area was just successfully had its speed limit reduced to a 20-mile-per-hour safety zone out of the concerns for the public with regard to those that walk that area. Putting on additional watercraft on the roadways, combined with the existing walkers that go by and the vehicles that go through, that quite frankly led me and many overwhelming number of residents to sign petition that the select board received and acknowledged, and signs are now up for the 20-mile-per-hour safety zone. I'm very much concerned with regard to watercraft and a car coming around corners and the potential incident of a horrific accident, which has led to my involvement in this area a great deal. Having said that, another aspect that I see a lot of in the open space and recreation plan is working on invasives. I'm in my second year of removing invasives as well as planting natives on that exact lot. There's behind that lot a couple of properties, couple of homeowners that have a fence. I'm removing the invasives about 20 feet in front of that fence line, and have been doing it. And in addition, received permission to plant natives there. And so 2 years underway with that. The lot, as I think Andrew may have mentioned, maybe it was somebody else, apologize if I incorrectly said it, it's periodically used by people with regard to informal play, if you will. It is without doubt the most level lot in the Long Lake area. And also unique is that this is the lot that does not require a Park and Rec seasonal pass, because I don't know if you're familiar, but as I've been here in 4 years, there's a lot of unhappiness with regard to the locals not being permitted to utilize the beach without paying for a pass. That's fine and good, but now we're seeing Park and Rec trying to, move into the one space that doesn't require compensation paid to Park and Rec. Andrew, I believe, mentioned the parking issue along Lake Drive. There's also 5 spots along Lakeshore. The last 2 days, all 5 parking spots are already utilized. I'm not proud to say this and don't have any personal stake in this one, but it was mentioned that locals might be using this for their watercraft. If you take a tour around Lakeshore Drive, you'll see that the locals just pile and utilize their watercraft of all various forms in various haphazard ways along Long Lake Park, extending from the beach area to Prouty Woods. So there's a series of those things that I just want to bring to your attention. If you were to consider this, and if it were put to a public hearing, that I'd probably get a number of local residents involved. The Long Lake Neighborhood Association has already heard about the issue once. I'd probably look to get them involved in order to get really their opinions. I'm not aware of public sentiment looking for this type of utilization. I know that a Park and Rec Commission member is interested in it, but that's the only time I've heard this come up. And with that, I'd like to just finish by saying, I don't know why they couldn't use their own existing park space or their existing space next to the either the snack shack or the bathroom area. I don't see why property has to be taken away from locals when in fact I think existing space stays there that would not create public concerns with regard to safety issues. Or if the issue is that they need, property, move some of their existing many sailboats, many pieces of infrastructure, have them move some of their stuff off to 36 King Street, where they now have a much bigger expanded parking lot available to them, and then utilize the space where it could be right next to the boat ramp. So appreciate your time. Happy to answer any questions, but appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Thanks for coming in, Rob.
Thank you, Rob.
So right now we don't have a formal anything in front of us, right? This is just a discussion. I think, Tim, if you want to point Park and Rec and the Park and Rec Commission to this meeting, they can get a sense of where we might stand. And that's probably the best way, because I would not dare recommend you try and summarize all of that.
Okay.
And then if they want to come forward with a formal proposal, they've heard what the concerns are. They can propose what they would like to propose, and they would be wise to take this feedback.
And we would want them to do that as a posted public hearing.
Oh, 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And a well-advertised one is at that, because this is definitely, as Rob was making it sound, definitely a topic that would get interest.
And even though, I'm generally supportive of it, I would want them to come in with a fully thought out plan, right? Like how many, where, how much, right? Like there's a number of concerns that have been laid out that I think they would be wise to respond to. If they just came in with a plan that said, hey, we want to put this rack here, then might not want to waste their time doing that.
I gotcha.
I think we can probably move on to 300 Foster, access to Webster Woods. What's this one about, Tim?
Okay. So I've been in talks with the landlord of 300 Foster. So this property abuts Webster.
Yeah. Sort of up back on the hill, right?
Right. Yeah. And been talking with them about if there's a way that we can figure out whether it's an easement or utilizing some of their existing parking spaces, basically getting some sort of access from that property to access Webster. Even though we don't have a formal trail system there yet, there's some trails. Those are hopefully going to be, that trail system's hopefully going to be designed. I'm going to be working with LCT and I believe a member from the Historical Society on that this summer. So trying to get things moving, thinking about access. I've gotten in contact with them, and what they've come back with is they're not fond of the idea of an easement because they don't want to hand over permanent rights to the town. What they do want to put on the table is the idea of them allowing a certain amount of existing spots to be utilized for accessing Webster. But they would like to see, they want there to be some sort of structure to that agreement where there's a fee, which they admit it can be nominal, but they want something kind of holding our feet to the fire there.
Sure.
So I wanted to see what you guys thought of that idea. There is a gap between that parking area that they proposed, those existing parking spaces, and where Webster actually starts. So something to think about, because
who owns that? Who owns that gap?
It's still 300 Foster.
Okay.
In terms of getting from the parking spaces to the actual Webster property, I mean, I don't know if we have to have an easement for there to be access there, or if we don't have to. But I spoke with Amy about this actually today, and she mentioned, I'm unfamiliar with that area. I haven't been out there, but she said that area is actually fairly steep.
It is steep coming down from up on the hill there for sure.
Yeah.
it's also one of the coolest parts of the property back there.
Yeah, I hadn't been back in that area. When I've accessed Webster, I've always accessed from Bulkley Road. There is enough area for about maybe 2 vehicles to pull off, mostly off the road and park on the side there where there is the existing trailhead.
So maybe instead of paying this person for access to their parking lot, we think about using whatever that money would be to improve the off-road parking trailhead. We've got a lot of trails where in recent years we've been putting a couple of parking spaces off the road for people to be able to use the trails. Maybe we think about something like that there.
Yeah, that area where there is the existing parking for maybe 2 cars, that area is pretty close to sensitive wetland areas. I think there's a vernal pool over there, not very far away. And I don't know if there's a lot of area to expand to a formal parking area with formal parking spaces.
So when they said nominal fee, are we talking like $1 because we need to have some financial exchange here to make this legal, or were they talking about something that's actually like a real sum of money, even though it's not big?
Didn't get that far into discussions with them. They did give an example, and not to say that this is what they were expecting from us, just an example of a similar agreement they have with, and I don't even know if it was a town for access. It might have just been a company to use those spots in their parking lot. It was $75 a month, which I don't think they expect from us. But I didn't get that far into discussions with them about a specific amount.
That helps benchmark it though, right? Like that. Cool.
Essentially, that's $1,000 a year more.
Yes, that's way.
I wouldn't be inclined to do that myself.
No, but if we could make it $200 a year because they've got some signs, sure, we could live with that.
For sure.
But at that point, I'd rather just make it $1 a year and they can feel good about how they're helping support the community.
When you said nominal fee, I guess that's where my head went. Like, oh, you're doing us a favor here, letting us access this land.
Right. I mean, I think it's a really interesting thing that is worth exploring, Tim, because access to Webster via Bulkley is a challenge.
Yeah.
And I think there are a number of solutions, and that's why when we acquired it, we felt like it wasn't necessary to have a specific answer, but this is, I think, the best answer if we can make it work. And I'm really excited that you are working on trying to find an answer to it. That is
it's really
a very good use of your time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, I feel, time for people to get out there and actually see what we, purchase for them.
100%. That builds the next conservation voter in my mind, right?
Exactly.
So what do you need from us right now? Are you just updating us, or do you need particular feedback?
Seeing if you guys are inclined to, with this idea of maybe having me talk further about this structure of an agreement to pay a nominal fee to use these parking spaces.
How many parking spaces was he willing to give up? Or you haven't got that far?
I'm not sure if they gave an exact number, but I think we'd really only be looking for maybe like 3.
Yeah, it's probably only a few. And the real interesting thing is the times when residents want it are not always, but they don't overlap a ton with when businesses are operating, right?
Either weekends or evenings, right?
Yeah.
Right. Not all of us can be retired, right, Carl?
As he sits back.
Yeah, I think, Tim, you're working on the right track here. And the more reasonable we can make the fee, the better. But,
I'll fight as hard as I can to get that number as low as possible.
Sure. You know what? I'll triple my offer. We'll make it $1 per spot.
Per spot? Yes.
Per year.
They'll be happy to hear that.
No, they've been a good partner and things like that and other things. So I think continuing the dialogue is great.
All right. I just had one other quick thing, and just really to note that the assistant conservation agent Lauren Redosh, she did start up yesterday, and we're very lucky to have her in the office.
What is she in the office every 5 days a week right now? In other words, if I bop in tomorrow to introduce myself, reasonably likely that she'll be around?
Yes,
or
reasonably likely. She's taken the MACC courses, and that's why she actually isn't here tonight, because she's got one of those classes. But I think they're at the time of the year where they're really pumping those out, like multiple per week. So she's kind of taken a couple hours away from the daytime hours to do that in the evening. But generally speaking, I believe she's looking for kind of a consistent, like maybe 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. So she'll be around during the majority of office hours.
Great. Well, my wife will kick me for tossing this out, but I think we should do like a end of summer, like conservation commission, conservation staff kind of barbecue or something like that. Just social gathering, give her a chance to get to know everybody a little bit. So
that's a great idea.
Are you offering to host it?
Yeah.
I am offering to host.
That's why his wife was going to kick him, because he's offering.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll show up in a couple of weeks with some proposed dates and times, and we'll see if we can put something together.
Perfect.
Sounds good.
Oh, wait, one more. I will keep this quick. And I was talking with town clerk's office that, we can't talk about this right now, but I can just mention it about the enforcement order. As you guys know, I emailed you guys, I think was it yesterday at this point, of the enforcement order that went out for Zero Fort Pond, who has an existing order of conditions with us. They will be coming to the following meeting on the 8th to discuss, and we'll be voting to ratify at that meeting.
Very good. I will say, Tim, one thing that may be a really good use of Lauren's time is sites that are in active construction. It may not be the worst idea to just send her out to put eyeballs on certain things, right? Like seems like some folks are hitting stumbling blocks, and as part of her training, but also as part of our oversight. And given that all of our orders of conditions guarantee us that the right to access that property, might be worth teeing up a couple that you want her to just go put eyes on.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. So she was there yesterday, and first day enforcement order. So
right. We do 3, 4 a year, maybe at most. Good.
But yeah, no, that's a good idea.
Another thing, I got an email today. I guess the select board approved, Andrew, my re-upping for 3 years, so you're stuck with us for the next 3 years.
Good news.
Official.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
How many? What is this? Probably your 6th term, 7th, maybe 6th term, 5?
Me? I've been a full member for 12 years and
12 years. Okay. So this will be your 5th official term. Wow. Bravo.
And Carl, in what term?
I don't even think about it, Andrew.
He's retired. He doesn't have to think about it.
It's been a long time.
Well, we appreciate you guys coming back.
Yep.
Very good. I think we need one more motion, though.
I move that we close the meeting.
Second. All right. Last roll call vote. Kyle.
Maxfield, aye.
Carl.
Carl Melber guy.
Ed.
Ed Fultz, aye.
Chase.
Chase Gerbig, aye.
Michael.
Michael Livingston, aye.
Myself, aye. It's unanimous. We're adjourned.